Hello, and welcome to Two Props in a Pod. I'm Tanisha.
I'm Beth.
And we are faculty and faculty developers at Glendale Community College in Arizona. And we like talking about teaching, learning, and other stuff. So, Beth, who do we have with us today?
Well, on this day, one of our last few episodes, we have a returning guest, Karim Soto.
Yay!
Welcome, Karim.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah, my third time. Yeah.
Yes, excited.
Yes, yeah. I'm happy to be back.
So
Yeah.
Tanisha and I were reviewing the previous times that you were a guest with us. And so the first one was in 2018. And it was season 2, episode 4. And we were talking about the undergraduate research that you did with the Organization for Tropical Studies in Las Cruces in Costa Rica. So can you remind us briefly what you looked at in your research?
Yeah, I studied the glass frog, the Esparrada prosoblipon. I still remember the Latin name. But we just looked at, it was more about like exploring the scientific question of like you have something that you want to research and now you're going to do it in the real world. So it had real life applications and you worked with people. So it was a cool, like full encompassing experience of like the scientific question. Like you have a hypothesis, then you get results and then you answer the question. And so we looked at like Espada, the glass frog mortality rates, what caused them of the embryos. We found out there was like wasps, there was like the water rainfall would just wash them all off. Some of them just didn't get like fertilized, stuff like that. So it was a really cool experience. And I think like to this day, it's one of the coolest memories I've had. And I had instructors from here that are like, you're going to have that experience and nothing is ever going to compare to that. And she was absolutely right. Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds so cool. Yeah. I remember you talking about that in the episode. And it's one of my, out of all the years we've done this podcast, it's one of my favorites because I remember you talking about all of this and I mentioned something about, so you look at the frog babies.
The frog baby.
That was the best. That was like my one takeaway, but
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Really everything that you were doing is more to it than just frog babies.
Yeah.
You know, and just the experience that you had and a memorable experience that you're going to have for like the rest of your life, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so after we talked to you in 2018, and I believe it was the end of 2018, you were leaving GCC and you were going to go to Colorado and go to school there for a little bit, which you did. And then you transferred to ASU, so you came back. And we talked to you next in 2020. So it was pandemic, y'all. And it was season 4, episode 4. And we kind of talked about you going to ASU and what was coming up for you and things like that. And now we're season 8, episode 4. And Tanisha and I were like, oh my God, why do we keep having him on episode 4
Yeah.
of all these various that's weird, right?
I'm a little like maybe 4 is my lucky number.
Right?
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was 3, but maybe it's 4.
Or both.
Or both.
Okay.
34.
3
Got a
and
new
4.
one.
and 4, yeah.
So we talked to you after 2 years. Now we're talking to you after basically 4.5 years,
Crazy.
right? I'm sorry we didn't bring you back 2 years ago.
No, it's okay. I would have had nothing. There's. I feel like now there's updates. You know, you got to let it simmer, ferment, and then you know,
Let it marinate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I know that you had worked in, remind us what you graduated with from ASU.
I graduated with a bachelor's in microbiology.
Okay. And I know you worked at some labs,
Yes.
For several years after you graduated. And, what can you tell us now? Like, since you graduated from ASU to now, like, what has transpired?
There's a lot that's transpired. I can't believe it's been that long. To me, it didn't feel like that long, but now that like I'm looking at the numbers, that's a long time. But I mean, I graduated with my bachelor's from ASU, which was a really cool accomplishment. I was actually very happy with that. It was like the pandemic time. So it was a really weird, like right when the pandemic started, I just had one last semester. So it was like the final, it just made it more like climactic because it was like the COVID and it's like, what's going on? There's so much uncertainty in the air, but so that was an interesting time. So right when I graduated, I got a job. And because of COVID, there's actually a high hiring rate for any like lab science people. I was wondering
how that would relate.
So it was like a very like dark time. But then in terms of hiring, it was like they were going to take anyone. So I remember I started working there and I worked there for not long. I think it was just 5 months. It was a good like foot in the door experience. I processed like COVID samples. We did like 96 well plates. So you just pipette individual samples over and over and over for hours and hours and on. But it's really stressful because like if you get like splashing in the plate, like you just contaminated the whole thing and you just spent like an hour, you got to redo it, you know? So it was very stressful. I remember sweating. I'm always nervous. I live nervous. I live in a state of anxiety. Like if I was a dog, I'd be a chihuahua for sure. So, and I also care. You know, I don't want to mess someone's results up. People have like grandparents, sick members, so they want to make sure their results are accurate. And I feel like I've always carried that with me. And so, yeah, I cared and I did my best, but it was hard. It was a very intense time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you worked at some other labs.
Yes. After that, I worked in like a vet lab science type of thing. And it was like a really new company startup. And there I was more like, I can't even remember my job title. I think it was just like a lab technician, but it was like research and development, not so lab. We would do like kind of like lab reports we'd write up trying to get data so they could be approved to be sent out to like pets, which that was really cool. And that was, I learned a lot. I think I worked there for about a year there. And that was really cool. I enjoyed that, but then I moved on and then I worked in like the hospital lab setting and that was always my goal, but I didn't know that you needed a different degree to work in that. So to work in a hospital, I thought you needed, what would be called a medical lab technician degree or a medical lab science degree. But, there are certain companies that will hire you if you're a related science. And then you can start there. And then after you work there for a year, you can take a test, a certification, and then you can become equivalent to a 4-year degree. So that's what I did. So I worked there for a year and then I did a medical lab scientist certification and I still have that. And then there you're allowed to like work at like most hospitals because now you have the degree that matches what someone else did. Which was cool. I didn't know that. I think that was like a theme that I ran into a lot of like kind of the unknown. Like I think honestly being first generation, it was just me facing things and learning things and asking questions. And so that was tough, but I think it made me more resilient because it's like I had to find out what I needed to do. And so I was kind of like clawing where I could to get what I could. And but yeah, so I worked around the lab world and that was it was hard. It was very hard. I didn't underestimate, I underestimated how stressful it'd be. I thought like, the first 5 months doing the 96 well plates, like the stress will go down, but it doesn't because like I still always cared. So I wanted to make sure like, you do your job well. And I do take pride in my work. So, but it was, I learned a lot those years. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And are we up to the present moment?
We are to the present moment. Yeah.
Okay. And so where are you now? And how did you transition to where you are now?
So right now it's like a full 180, but I work as an assistant at a hair salon, which is funny. And now I'm going to cosmetology school to be a hairdresser. Right, so it's a full pivot. Like I always say, like I tell when I'm working on clients in the school or at the salon, I'm like, yeah, lab people and hair people are two different breeds of human beings. It's like you got like the people who don't speak and then the people who speak too much. And so I feel like I'm kind of right in the middle where it's like, I like to talk, but I don't want to like, I'm not always on a 10, but yeah, so now I'm working there. I graduate in 2 years and then I'll be able to like, then take a certification for doing hair because you have to take a state board. And then, I can grow that career. I wanted a second skill because when I worked in the lab world, it was a very, it's a tough world. It's like you have to kind of be very obedient and sometimes even if it's not the correct thing. And so I feel like I do struggle with that, and I will always speak up against things where I don't feel like comfortable. And I feel like that got me into a little bit of some predicaments. So then I wanted to make sure I have a second skill that nobody can take away from me, because if you're under someone, they can take that away from you at any moment. And so I learned that the hard way. And so I'm growing another skill, but I do want to go back into the science world. I have that certification. I worked really hard for that certification. And so I want to jump back into that, so I can do kind of both and grow both fields and do that. Yeah. Because I love doing hair, but that's going to take years before it pays itself off. And so, and I do love the science world, microbiology specifically. And I love like the patient care in that world. But it's just both things I'm kind of like investing in both. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, let's say.
Right.
But yeah.
How long does that certification last that you have?
For microbiology,
Yeah.
That's a scary question, because I think it's like 2 years and I feel like I'm coming up on that. So I have to look into that. But yeah.
And then you have to like retest or something to keep it? Or?
I believe you have to take like credits to make sure it's like current and up to date, which I'm not entirely sure how it'd be. So I'm not working in microbiology at the moment. I kind of ran into some issues. There were some things that like I didn't kind of completely agree with in that world. And so when I say that got me into trouble, like I got fired, which is crazy because I'm so like cookie cutter and I listen to the rules. So me getting fired, I was always like, that's not going to be me. But I've kind of learned that the medical world is kind of like, I say it's like the medical mafia world. Like you're either with them or you're against them. And so that was definitely a learning experience. That was definitely hard, but I know that one day I'll be able to find an environment that will want to see me grow and that will nourish, the potential, because I know I have it. And I would always do very good at my job, and I always got really along with my coworkers, but sometimes there's that power dynamic of like, you're not listening to exactly what I'm saying. Well, then you have to go. And that was kind of my first interaction with that in the real world, from a student to that, which was very difficult. It's not just difficult, I think, emotionally, but also economically. Like I went into school for money. And so having these obstacles that would kind of, the intent was to, cause harm, that was very hard for sure. Yeah. I feel like that was a lot.
No. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And I think it is an interesting track, right? Where you were to where you're at right now. Yeah. But there's still a desire to have the science side of things and then the cosmetology side of things, which I think is interesting. So, or maybe there's a way you can maybe bridge the two somehow together.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. So I think you never know where life can take you. So I think maybe it's ambitious, but I would like in the future to merge those some things. I mean, nowadays anyone pops out lines of this and lines of that, but I would like to do something that's like authentically good for like hair, but bridging that microbiome, because I have the background. Why not use it and incorporate it? So I know down the future that will benefit me in some way. Right. And so I'm excited to see how that flourishes into something else.
Right. Because science is not my background. That's why I teach communication. But I don't know. I guess in my mind, I think about like the science behind hair products or the science behind coloring, right? And having to get the formula right. I'm telling you, people who do color, that makes me so nervous, because if you get it wrong, that's horrible, right? Yep. So you have in my mind, in that world, doing things like color or having your own product, there's some science behind that. Maybe not necessarily the science you're thinking about, but I can definitely maybe see some overlap, some type of way somehow in that field, in that area.
There definitely is. It's funny because the first thing you learn in like cosmetology school and hairstyling school is pathology, the pathology of like scalp infections. And I was like, oh, I already know all this, like ringworm and like all those. I was like, oh, I know this. So there definitely is an immediate bridge between those both worlds, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, oh, I got this in the bag. That whole section, I was like, easy. Because I had worked with that in like 4 years. So there is definitely a bridge, and they're both cool. I think in the end, like they're very different, but they're similar because the intent is to like help people. And I think I always wanted something along that line, something that, you feel like you're contributing to society, like in a way you can see it. I feel like I wanted to do that. So like in the science world, like I loved it. Like there'd be times where like I remember like I had these cool coworkers. We're all the same age. We're like just getting into it. And it's like, you'd get a blood sample and it's like, oh, it's a baby and they have like meningitis. It's like, we got to be on this. We have to like, we got to set this up right. We got to like put the plate. There's so much attention to detail with that, and wanting to do a good job. And that applies to hair too. It's like, you got to get the formula right. And have I messed up the formula? Absolutely, I have. But you learn, and I think it's a really cool experience altogether, both of them. And the fact that they overlap, I think, is really cool in the end. And I think like maybe in a way, like not, it was bound to happen eventually. I think like maybe in 10 years, I still would have gone into hair, just because I think the more skills you have under your belt, the better.
Right.
No matter who you are, you want to have, more like, you want to be able to defend yourself in any way you can. So I think that,
Yeah, that makes sense to me, right? Like the skill that you're developing now, like you said, you could be your own boss.
Yep.
Right. And you own that skill then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something like, because I know like this is for like students as well, listen, and that's something to know is like, make sure you explore your options before selecting something. Don't think don't have this horse racing vision, where they wear like the little horse and they can't see anything vision, that you have to do something and it has to be that way, and that you can't pivot it, because you absolutely can. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like completely different. It can incorporate what you've already put work and time into, but just, I feel like that's something to know.
Yeah. It's hard. And we did talk a little bit before we started this episode about, what being at GCC in Colorado and ASU prepared you for versus, stepping into this, so-called real world, and what your coursework and academics just like didn't prepare you for. And maybe all of that never intended to prepare you for that. And just how that was really kind of, I don't know, I want to say the word struggle, but maybe it wasn't that much of a struggle, or maybe that's where the struggle was, because you had the knowledge of the very technical aspects and the science and all of that. And then there's this whole other world, right, where there's the culture of the workplace and, policies and regulations, and I don't know, that you just kind of have to learn while you're on the job.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And if I think back, like even I was walking here, I was mentioning before we started that like it was so weird to be here, but even walking here, I just remembered all the good memories. Like the teachers here, from every institution I had ever been to, there was no better teachers than the teachers here at GCC. That like 100%, like the dedication, the personalness of it, like they really care and they really want to set students up for the best, and they do set you up for the best. They give you like all the tools that they can to make sure you succeed. And I think that's really cool, and you should take advantage of those tools, and teachers want to help you. So make sure you ask, and they like, if you go up, if you ask one question, they'll give you 10 answers because they want you to do well. And so I feel like if you think like just absolutely network here and make connections and keep in contact with your teachers. That's why I still do. I think not only is it like the personal of like, it was such a good memory, like the whole Costa Rica thing and stuff, but also it's just like you do feel like you have someone on your side, and that's still rooting for you. Like, what have you doing? What are you doing? And following up on that process. I mean, that alone just shows like the passion that there is in teaching. And so I think that's super cool. Teachers are incredible.
That they're going to love hearing that.
Yes.
But that also takes me back to, Karim actually came to my office hours. And I know that, as faculty, we talk a lot about students probably not utilizing office hours as much as they could. But the real, there was probably a benefit in whatever question you got answered at the time or whatever. But then also later, when you asked if I would write this letter of recommendation, I would have done it anyway.
Right.
But I had a lot more material just kind of at the ready because we had extra conversations. And I think some students don't think about those parts of it either.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point. And you know what's so funny? Even at that time, a lot of the times, like I did have genuine questions, but I always thought like it's good for them to know who I am, because you don't know if you need a letter of recommendation. You don't know if something comes up in your life and it's like, can I have a little grace to have some more time on a project, to have more time on an essay, for whatever it might be. Because once there's that humanity, that connection between teachers, and the teachers want that. That's why they do office hours, and that's why they want the students to come in for help. It just makes it a lot easier. Like you said, it's true. There was already like an association, like your familiarity with me. So yeah, if you go into it, if you have perfect grades, I think this is just me speculating, but I think if you have a B student that you know well, and like you have versus an A student, they probably never even show up. They do all the work at home, and it's like, well, what am I going to write? They're a great student. There are millions of great students. Did you show the initiative to get to know your teacher? That will make a difference.
That's a really good point. So you had said on one of the previous episodes, we're going to also link the previous episodes in our show notes. So if people want to catch up on the previous ones, they can. Okay, so you had I guess it was kind of advice. You said in a previous episode that one of the things that you learned, through your schooling is that it's okay to mess up, and basically you just need to keep going.
Yeah.
Do you agree with yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember this exact moment of what I was talking about. It's when I failed a class at ASU. And it's so funny, it was my microbiology class, and it's the degree I had. But that teacher, I still remember, I think it was Heather Bean. She told me that. She was like, it's okay to fail. Fail as many times as you need, as long as you finish because you want to finish. And I carry that with me to this day, because I think it's very good advice, sound advice. And it's helped me a lot. I think there's some, like I took a year break. I went to the 2-year degree. I think it took me like 3.5 years, because I was like, first semester was like the negative connotation of community college. I was like, I can't believe I'm here. I failed. I remember really thinking that, like I remember crying in my room when I was like signing up for GCC. I was like, it's over. The drama of it all. I was like, it's over. But it's not. The thing is, when you don't know, and you have, like, at that time, high school, I think very much so, the counselors are just kind of like trained to kind of push people to go to college. But you don't have to go right into college. Explore your options, and community college is excellent. And I know that community college is becoming more of a preference. I can just tell the culture is changing, because people aren't going to university anymore because it's just so expensive. I think times have changed, and a lot of people just can't afford it. It's just it's not feasible at all. And so people are like, okay, what can I do? And so many people have found out, like, if you go to community college, then you just have 2 years left, save a lot of money, you don't have debt. And so people are like, I'm going to do that. And so then more people are like, wait, why am I doing this? For what? I mean, unless you got excess money, but I mean, that's not me. So, but people are learning
It's probably not very many.
Probably not very many. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Okay. So I've got 2 questions for you. I kind of want to know what you would tell students at GCC now, and maybe that was some of what you just said. But I also kind of want to know what you would share with faculty, if you think there's any kind of message that you have for them. Yeah.
I feel like for the students, I would say also grades matter. I know that sounds really, really silly, but I was always like, I was a good student, but if I would have put 10% effort, I feel like that would have changed the opportunities that I could have had. Like, you put down the TikTok, put down the phone, just do the work, and then get to that. Because there was, like, even after I graduated, when I was kind of figuring out what I want to do, I was going to apply for a master's. And I did it in France. Remember? I told you about that?
Yeah.
I was going to do a master's in France in microbiology, food science. And I remember I did my application, and it went really well. And then I did an interview, the initial interview. And the lady who conducted the interview, she was like, it was like supposed to be 30 minutes. I think it was like an hour. We had a great conversation, and she was like, yeah, I see that you've really put in the work. She was like, but then she kind of sent me a follow-up email like everything looks really good, but your GPA is low. Your GPA is low. And it was only low, like so when you change from community college to ASU, which I think most people would do who listen, it's a reset. So you start at a 4.0. But because you have such a little bit amount of time, if you mess up in that year or whatever you have left, it's going to show. And that ends up staying. So I think you have to be careful with that. But yeah, so then she kind of mentioned, like, she was like, I really like your application. I'm going to fight for you. But the CEO, I don't know if he's going to let it slide. I don't know if he'd even consider it. And so she got back to me. She was like, I tried, but unfortunately didn't pan out. So that was a lost opportunity, which it's fine. I tried. You lose all the ones that you don't get. But yeah. So I think really early on, take your grades seriously. Go to office hours, connecting that with like how can student like talking to instructors. I don't know, like I don't know how's a way to get more students into office hours, because it is so beneficial. But I guess you just have to want to do it, and because I feel like a lot of people think it's not beneficial because it's like the grades, but no. To the students, like, yeah, definitely go into office hours, network with your teachers, connect, keep in contact. They like that. Down the line, that can help you in so many different ways. Like personally and for your career, it's good to network. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's such a good question. Like, what can teachers do? What can students do? But I guess you just gotta want to do it, because if there's the want not to do it, it's not going to be there. Because I did that. There's a lot of times I'd go into office hours and it was, just to have the teacher become familiar with me, because I was like, like I said, like, what if I need a letter of recommendation or whatever it may be. And
right.
So yeah, just take advantage of that. Yeah. From both sides.
What about faculty?
That's what can faculty, like advice for faculty?
Yeah.
That one's hard. That one's really hard. I'm like, how? Because yeah, like you said, like logistically, they show you the skills, the knowledge behind that, and a lot of the times, like it's kind of a shame, because a lot of what I learned in school, like especially when I got to the science, because I graduated microbiology, a lot of that was not used, because everything's become so automated in science and everything, that it's like now they have robots that can streak petri dishes. And they have robots that can move the petri dish from one incubator to the next. And they have robots that can, I think the last thing they need is have a robot to call a doctor and tell them a result. But it can send it to a computer. So everything's becoming so automated that, like, I'm not sure logistically how long those careers are going to be sustainable for, which is really scary to think about. That now that's getting into like AI conspiracy. But it's true. Like, I've seen it. Like, at my last science job, like, I still keep in contact with some coworkers, and they got an automated machine that could essentially do what a medical lab technician and a medical lab scientist can do. And that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So is there someone there now, and maybe you don't know this, I don't know, but it has the job turned into somebody managing that machine?
It would be that maintenance, the upkeep, but that's, you need someone to come out there every 3 months, whatever the regulations are on that. But yeah, so I mean, for teachers, what advice? I don't know. Like, what I think there should be kind of like, there should be like training and like people, interaction with people, because I think that's what I struggled more in, like the work culture. I mean, I think a complete like shutdown and revamp of the work culture entirely, but that's a little outlandish. But somehow making sure like those like teaching students, because also we're young, so we have like this, maybe it was just me, but it's like, I don't know, there has to be like knowledge on how to help communicate them, like help them communicate when they come into those issues where,
right.
And there are ways, but like a lot of the ways that I tried didn't work. Like, I don't know, this might be like human resources is not your friend. That's a good just thing to know. They're not your friend. Absolutely not. And stuff like that, like maybe teaching them, because I think they teach it for a way for students to be prepared to like, to be able to communicate with their colleagues. There needs to be more like teamwork building activities, because I feel like when you get out into the world, there's hardly any job where, unless you work for yourself, where you just have to rely on yourself. There's so many interactions. There's a hierarchy of like boss, employee, this. There needs to be teaching on that. Maybe even like, I don't know, like your rights. Like what are your rights as an employee? Stuff like that. Maybe how to explore it's stuff like that. I don't know, because that's a hard question, because each field is different. If you're a chef, what are the rules there? I have no idea. So I don't know. That's a hard question. Yeah, I'm stumped.
I mean, I can see maybe like some scenarios, right? Like some workplace scenarios.
Yeah.
That even maybe involve ethical situations or something like that. That would, and we probably have some courses that maybe delve into those more specifically, but
Yeah, we have in my field is small group communication. So that can help individuals in the workplace as far as how to work with teams, how to work in groups, how to deal with conflict is a part of it as well. Interpersonal communication can help people with one-on-one situations. I know, I think in COM 100, we talk in Introduction to Communication, we talk about like workplace environments and relationships and roles, right? How you do have someone who is a superior and a subordinate and how the communication patterns work with that. So I feel like across the board, communication is something that I think would help a lot of students. I've come across students who have asked me questions about this is what's going on in the workplace. What do you think? What do you suggest? What do you recommend? And I just usually just go back to what we talked about in class. So I think having more students taking classes like that would be very helpful, and maybe even other things that we could expand on, like how to deal with human resources or how do you talk to your boss. And so there's a world of stuff out there. It's just really finding where that might be, but it might be difficult depending on what your field of study is.
That I didn't know about that. So I've heard people mention communication degrees, and I was like, I feel like it's when it's someone, I say microbiology to someone, they're like, I have no concept of that. But the same with communication. I didn't know that was a thing. I think that's so interesting. Like, so what are some like points kind of related to that communication emphasizes to kind of get through that?
One of them is conflict. I think conflict is something that people are like, how do I deal with that? How do I resolve it? It's important to kind of let people know that, you know, everyone has different conflict styles. Most importantly, some people can be one way, the other way. We usually have multiple conflict styles, and then learning how to resolve them as well. So there's different things or different methods that can be used to try to resolve those issues. One of them is acknowledging the fact that people do have conflict styles, and they have, like, for example, maybe defensive communication associated with that conflict style. How do you deal with someone who is defensive? How can you speak up in situations where you need to be more assertive with your boss? Not disrespectful,
right,
but speaking up.
Yeah.
Right. How do I speak up? And there's kind of these different areas that can be touched upon that can really help students in their community, because across the board, it seems like in pretty much majority every field, communication is a common factor.
I mean, just everything you just said, doesn't that sound like it would be so helpful to just about any person?
Absolutely.
I was going to say, my new advice, I'm editing it. Take this class.
Yeah.
Take all of Tanisha's classes, because I wish I would have known about that. And I'm not kidding you. I will probably take one of your classes, because I think that's really, like you mentioned, in any field you go into, that is so important. And I didn't know there's like subsets and divisions and like a breakdown.
It's very broad. Like I said, small group, interpersonal communication, like intercultural type communication, public speaking, which is my area of expertise, which a lot of people could use in many different areas. Oh my gosh, it's a lot.
I love that. That sounds so cool. That sounds super cool.
Yeah.
I gotta look at Tanisha's.
Take take
absolutely.
a communication class.
You two chat afterwards.
Yeah, you need communication in English. Those are the two things that are very, very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was just kind of coming to my mind too that, you know, that's another nice thing about community college. You could be out there working already and come back to pick up some extra skills.
Absolutely.
Right? You take a class or two and you're like, oh, sweet. So glad I learned that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll see my name on your class roster.
Hey, I would love to see you.
I'll be there.
Just drop in.
I will absolutely be there. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You can learn a lot that you could apply, especially in your field that's coming up, right? Interpersonal communication, hands down. How do you interact with people who are different from you?
Yeah.
How does who you are impact other people? Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm going to take your classes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm absolutely going to take your classes.
Yeah, we can definitely chat off the podcast about some of those details.
Of course, yeah. Super cool.
Okay, so this takes us to our segment, What's on Your Radar, which is, you know, what's something that we're looking forward to. It could be education related or personal related. So we'll start with Tanisha.
Okay. So I have some things on my radar. Those of y'all who have listened to me know I'm a reader, so I'm really excited for the new Hunger Games book that came out called Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I still have yet to read Don't Come For Me, Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which is the Fourth Wing series. I have to read that. But the main thing that I'm super excited for is that some of our GCC faculty are actually have a panel at Phoenix Fan Fusion, which is also known as Phoenix Comic Con. So, all things comic books, superheroes, cosplay. So we are going to be talking about Captain America Civil War. And we're going to bring our different perspectives to the table. So we have someone in philosophy, someone in political science. I'm going to be talking about the communication perspective. That's going down in June. So super excited for that. So that's on my radar.
I already ordered my pass.
Yes, get your pass.
That sounds super cool.
If you're listening and you want to, hit us up. I believe it's June 7th, 3 to 4 at the Phoenix Convention Center, downtown Phoenix.
I love that. That sounds super cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's super
cool.
Are they doing like videos of it, or do you have to take the pass and
you have to take the pass and be there? Yeah, but you can get a 1-day pass. So if you just want to hang out on Saturday, it's usually a little bit busy, but take a Saturday pass or be there for the whole weekend.
Oh, yeah. Cool. That sounds super exciting.
Is that on your radar now?
Now Tanisha's class is on my radar. the panel,
Phoenix Fan Fusion.
That sounds really cool. I walked by the building the other day. I was there and I didn't know we had a Comic-Con building. It was beautiful. It's like big. It's cool. I'm like, that looks fun. Yeah. That's on my radar too, I guess.
Okay, what else? What else is on your radar?
Oh, like of anything?
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be really like niche, but like I'm trying to get back into like fish tank aquascaping. I used to do that a little bit, but like I got so busy that I just stopped. But I've had a fish tank that I bought. It's like this really good like German brand, so it's like you can't see the little plastic part at the bottom that doesn't look at like. And so I want to get back into that world because now I'm gonna be free.
And so are you doing it for fish? You said aquascaping.
Yeah.
So I'm figuring that's with water and
Yeah.
fish are in it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you can also like. I used to set those up for like geckos, right? So it'd be more like terrarium like.
Yeah. It's fish, It's fish, plants, like shrimp. It's like you make a little river in like a yard. So it's kind of like bonsai keeping, but I feel like I'm going to kill a bonsai and they cost like $500. So I don't want to risk that. But a fish tank, I can do that. And I've had them before and it's cool. It's like this like peaceful. I'm all about like peaceful and like Zen and stuff like that. So yeah, fish tank. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You'll have to send a picture when you're done with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It's going to take a while, but I'll get there.
Okay,
I'll get there.
okay.
Yeah. And graduating school. I can't wait to finish hair school.
That's exciting.
I'm going to have my life back. I go from like the whole week from like 5 to 10 p.m. So I'm like never home. So I can't wait to be free.
And when is the date of that?
I think it's June 7th.
Oh,
isn't that crazy? I was thinking,
crazy.
I was like, I want to go. But I think it's like, I don't know. So, but I'm pretty sure it's June 7th. Yeah. So it's coming up. Almost there.
Good.
Yes.
Excellent.
What about you, Beth?
On my radar, honestly, is just a vacation.
Yes. That sounds good. Yes,
just
Beth.
need a vacation.
Yes.
Did you guys just have a spring break though?
Back
it
in
feels
March.
like it was forever
really?
ago.
It does
It's
feel
only-
like it was
it's April.
ago.
It's a month ago.
But that was
So
in
long
March.
ago.
It does feel so long ago. It feels like it was in January.
Oh, that's funny.
The vacation.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
Just some sleeping in time.
Yep.
That's it.
That's all that's needed.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into detail. I think a lot of people are nodding right now and be like, yep.
Oh, I think a lot
It's
of people
vacation
are nodding.
time. You know you ready. You know who you are out there. You are ready to go. All right. So I think that's everyone's radar. So so we're gonna wrap it up here with our podcast.
Thank you,
Thank you
Karim.
so much
Thank
for
you for
joining
having
us.
me.
Our the guest who's been on the most on our
Yes.
podcast. Like this is the third
You
time.
hold the record.
That's crazy.
You win the award
Wow.
for the guest who's been here the most. So 3 times.
I'll expect a little trophy in the mail
Yeah.
sometime.
Certificate
Yeah,
or something
certificate.
like that.
Another.
We'll get right on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just kidding.
All right. So if you enjoyed listening to this conversation and want to join in, connect with us on Blue Sky. Follow at 2 Props in a Pod or leave a comment on our blog at 2propsinapod.blogspot.com. Remember to spell out the number 2. Other ways to show your support: subscribe to your favorite podcast app, write a review on Apple Podcasts, or tell your colleagues about the show. Two Props in a Pod is hosted by Beth Ayers, English faculty, and Tanisha Baca, communication faculty. The show is brought to you by the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Engagement at Glendale Community College in Arizona.